Coach, on top of just the talents, when you look at the abilities, kind of the variability in age, youths and veterans in there, what is most intriguing about this running back room that you're working with this year?
I think just the combination of talents that we have there presents us with and there's going to be a theme about a lot of the positions, and really what I would say is true of our offense right now at most positions. We may not necessarily have that guy, and we know who that guy is because he's coming back from X numbers of years of experience or carries or catches in some cases. But the collective strength of the group, I think, is really strong. And their willingness to work together and cheer for each other is something that I've been really impressed with. And the challenge with that is, okay, we got a number of guys that we think can play. And so how do you give ample reps to each guy and still feel like we're able to see what we need from each guy, and we've given each individual an opportunity to prove what he's worthy of in this season or even game one. And so that's a real challenge, but it's a good challenge. I've been in some cases where we didn't have anybody that I liked. And so we've got several backs that I like, and that's a really good thing.
Does that make leadership more of a challenge in a room where there's not that one guy that sets the example and the tone for everyone else?
I think it can, yeah. But I also think it goes back to the fact that if a guy's a leader, then he'll truly step up, even if that's the case, or maybe even especially when that's the case.
Have you been off-site for fall camp in your previous stops in D.C.? Where do you see maybe the value in doing something like that?
In doing what? I'm sorry?
Going away for fall camp.
I've done it once. When I was at Arizona State, we went up in the mountains there. It was by necessity because the temperature was just ridiculous. And the benefit, I think, will be just an opportunity, on a pragmatic side, to do nothing but football for 2 weeks and be uninterrupted. I think in a different way, and probably even a stronger sense, is what you hope to build in terms of culture and togetherness and unity and a willingness to really see all of your teammates, not just the guys who are your best friends, as part of your family.
David Heinzen came in after spring, and obviously that's a tough spot to walk in.
Who? Sorry.
Heinzen.
Oh, yeah.
That's a tough spot to walk in after spring and not have that time. Just how have you seen him kind of attack that challenge of learning this offense and getting ready for camp?
Yeah, not an ideal situation, obviously, but I'm grateful that the portal exists for that, But he's done a great job learning the offense, and I would say he's a really smart kid and a quick study. There are a number of things that we're asking him to do that are different than he's done before, and that's where the learning curve has really got to speed up when we get to camp.
As far as Lance Mason goes, what do you like about his skill set, and is it maybe a little different than, does he bring something that maybe you didn't have in that room?
Yeah. So Lance, again, another guy that's really smart, really, really impressed with how fast he's learned everything that we're asking a tight end to learn. And the tight end position in this offense is not an easy one to learn. We're asking them to be just as involved in the run game as offensive linemen, and in a lot of ways just as involved in the pass protection game, especially when it comes to our play action protections, and then to do everything that receivers do. And so there's a lot to learn, and he has done a phenomenal job of learning it. I see the standout from him that I've seen thus far is the same thing that I saw when we made the decision to bring him here, and that is he's a natural route runner, understands space, leverage, has the ability to get in and out of breaks, and so I think that's his strong suit. Now, how well he blocks, particularly in this league, will also be a determining factor in terms of how much he actually plays instead of somebody else. So another position, just like running back, where there's a lot of competition.
Really transferring from within the conference, he's familiar with a lot of the opponents are familiar with him. What kind of dynamic is that? Is that any advantage to have somebody who's been in Big Ten, used to Big Ten?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's certainly an advantage for Billy, understanding what it's like to play, and and maybe not even the defenses that we're playing. I mean, he may have had one game against a certain team that's on our schedule, but they may have a new defensive coordinator this year. But I think the real advantage for him is just understanding the level of defense and the level of competitiveness that there is in this league, and how much other teams know about him and whether that's an advantage for them. I don't know. They probably, have some knowledge of him, but I think he's a different player now than he was last year, just like you would hope any player to be a year removed from his first year as a full-time starter, and a different style of offense.
Jeff, how does your offense look now? What are you hoping it looks like by the end of training camp?
What does it look like in what regard?
Just, things that you're picking up early, things that you're excited for, goals that you're going after.
I would say the biggest thing I'm excited about is just to see our guys play. We've spent a lot of time really trying to teach them the offense, and they've really been eager and willing to do a lot of the things that we've asked them to do. And now the next step is going to be, can they go out after having had, there's this period of time where you have to learn something new, where you're a beginner. You're not even a novice. You're just a beginner. You don't know how to do any of these things. They're just drawings on a piece of paper. And then you move from that stage to the next stage, which is, okay, I know what these things are, but I don't know exactly how to do them. And then the next step, and I would say that's where most of our team is now, the next step is, can I actually do these things well? And then can I do them better than the people who are trying to keep us from doing these things? And I'm really excited to see our guys take that next step. They've been really unbelievably willing to work and learn. Now I want to see them compete. Now I want to see how tough we really are. And to some extent, we'll find out a little bit more of that in fall camp, but we won't really know that until we get into the season and we play other teams.
I imagine you're pretty excited to get Tretch on the field. Based on what you know about him, how do you think he impacts this offense?
Yeah, so Tretch was probably really my first recruit when I got here, because when I was talking to Coach Fick about the job before I'd officially even taken it, I saw his name and that he was getting in the portal. Didn't know who he was at the time. And then I get here and then he's in the portal, and I talked with KG about him. I watched some film and I said, am I missing something here? Because I think we really want this guy on our team. And just talking with Vic and KG about it, we decided, yeah, we really want him on the team. And I brought him in and sat him down and talked with him for a while about his skill set and things that I've been able to do with players like him in the past. And, I think him just recognizing that I understood who he was, saw him as a player and as a person, said, yeah, I want to be a part of that. And certainly not being able to actually have him on the field as much as I'd like has been a frustration. But, man, he's really worked hard to get himself back where he's ready to go, and I think he is ready to go, and I think he brings multi-dimensional playmaking ability. He's a guy that you feel like could probably always get open and has the ability to really do some cool things when he has the ball in his hand. So not just as a receiver, but getting him the ball on jet sweeps and reverses and some cool stuff like that, I think will be a lot of fun.
Well, we've got a little more time with Grimes, but I want to open up Christian Allegro, Kate Giacomelli, and Aaron Witt. Keep them on time for them. So if you want to peel off and start getting them, feel free.
You probably don't want to talk to the defensive guys, but Cade's over there. He's a cool guy. You might want to talk to him. Sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah. Stay with the wide receivers. What kind of impact do you think Jaden could make this year?
Yeah.
They asked. I couldn't hear who they were asking about. And then, do you think Eugene could see some minutes or some time as a freshman?
Yeah, good questions. Jaden has the ability to be that deep threat that you feel like a defense has to respect at all times down the field. Number one, because he's just got the skill set for it. He's big, tall, and has great speed. And, those guys are able to do something different to a defense that other guys don't. And if you have that guy, and I've been on some offenses where we had one of those guys, and some others where we had 1.5 or maybe even 2. I've been on some offenses where we didn't have anybody that could really do that and threaten the defense deep, and it changes how they play. If you got one guy that can just lift the top off the defense, then they always have to respect that there's a deep threat. And so they either got to double cover him or they got to put somebody back in the middle of the field that can help with that deep post route. And so my hope is that he does that and he can become that kind of consistent player for us. He has shown at times that he can do that, but like a lot of our players, still has room for growth. Eugene, yes, I do think he could get some playing time this year. Just looking at his improvement from the time he first got here to where he is now, really made a lot of strides. And I think he's got a complete skill set as a receiver, but his real gift right now is that he kind of does some receiver things naturally, things that some other guys may be 2 or 3 or 4 years into their career and you're still trying to teach them how to run this route or how to make that cut or how to adjust to this ball. He just does them pretty naturally.
The right guard position, did somebody emerge for you in spring, or do you kind of feel like that's
Still a competition. Yeah.
With that stopping so relationship oriented, you need to know how the guy next to you plays. Like, do you have a date in mind when you want to have that decided, or do you have to let it play out?
The sooner the better, but I've been willing to allow a position battle to continue all the way up to the first game in the past. And then, what happens sometimes is even once you get past that first game, you still make a change because one guy's not doing it as well as you hoped he would, and another guy keeps practicing better. And I've also been in situations where we had a couple of guys who were pretty good, and so we had guys who shared time at that spot. And so I think all of those things are possibilities right now.
How do you balance that? Like, you've got a guy who you want to rotate out, but is it better to have a guy who's worked with his teammates who might not be playing as well at the moment versus get someone new, but he's got to still kind of adjust to the guys next to him?
Rephrase the question.
Like, in a game, like if you get into week 2 and you might want to make a change in the offensive
Oh.
line, how do you balance deciding, well, do we leave the guy in who maybe isn't playing as well, but he has that familiarity next to the guys around him?
Yeah, I think that's part of it, but I think ultimately, if our guys are the kind of team players that I think and hope they are, then they'll help that other guy feel comfortable enough that, and Davis Heinzen is a great example. He certainly hasn't earned his stripes with the other guys in the offensive line room as well as some other people have, but we didn't bring him here to not play, and so he's going to get a lot of opportunities to win that starting job. And the ultimate goal for all of us is to put a great product on the field and win. And I think everybody wants that. And ultimately, that's the thing that matters the most. And when that's the case, then I think the other players will do what they need to make sure that whoever that guy is feels comfortable. And then my job as the coach is to really just say to them, hey, we're making this move, and, I need you to be good with it.
What were those conversations?
Sorry, I was here next.
sorry,
Go ahead.
Oh, thanks. Going back to the running backs right now, there's been pretty much 3 guys that were, battling for those top snaps. Moving forward, I guess I'm wondering, are you more comfortable down the road with, last year was a 2-back kind of rotation, and I don't know, like, is there room for 3 backs once the season gets going to really,
Yeah.
Get regular opportunities?
The more, I'll say this, the more players you play at any one position, the harder it is for the coaches in 2 ways. One, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that we have a plan. If we say all 3 of these tailbacks are worthy of playing, then I'm going to say, okay, when are we playing this guy, when are we playing this guy, and when are we playing this guy, and how are we going to ensure that all of them get snaps? And so that means we have to be organized and efficient enough with our rotation and our personnel groups that we get the right guys on the field at the right time. And that's sometimes a bigger thing than people realize, because if I'm switching that running back, but I'm also switching 2 receivers or maybe a tight end and a receiver, that personnel group has to have all 11 on the field at the right time. So that's one thing. The other thing is just practice reps and getting those guys, as I mentioned earlier, the number of reps that they all need and deserve. The positive on the other side of it is, I think the more players you play, the more buy-in you have, the more collective ownership you have by the whole room and by the whole offense. And so I think it's harder. I think the ideal situation is you have 2 guys that you play most of the time, and then there might be a third that gets maybe a couple of plays, but he's ready to go. But if we have 3 that are ready, then we'll play all of them.
Last question.
What were the conversations like, and then ultimately making the decision to change the offense from what it was to last year to what it is now this year?
I had nothing to do with that. That was something that happened before I got here. I was just a guy that said yes when they asked me.
Let's do one more. Cole, go ahead.
We talked last week about the quarterback position, and especially at number 2 spot, like Hunter getting brought in, challenging Danny, kind of battling that out, and whoever ends up not being the 2 might get a red shirt to have some continuity in that room. What are the conversations like with those guys about that possibility?
Yeah, I think just like every room. I mean, those are real conversations that you just need players to understand going in, and to recognize that you're in one of those spots where you're not in the position where your name is just on the depth chart at this place right now. Joe Brunner is at this spot right now, and he's in a different spot. So the conversation we're having with him about being the best player that he can be is different than what we're having with those 2 quarterbacks about being the best that they can be, because you're talking about 2 very different outcomes with those guys. But I think in all those situations, the key is to just be really honest. And I think, sometimes you have to say some things that players don't necessarily want to hear. But if you're really honest with them and they know that you care about them, then they can hear about anything.